the question that was asked was, what is the deeper meaning of death? What exactly is death? In order to understand this question, it is important to realize that there is no such thing as a permanent identity, both in a perceiver and in the object of perception. Once again, I'll repeat, there's no such thing as a permanent identity, both as a perceiver or the object of perception. When I was born, for example, and I shouldn't say that, I should say when the baby that is me or identified as me was born, a name was attached to it, and the name was Deepak. That baby does not exist anymore. It became a child, which also does not exist anymore, and then it became an adolescent, which does not exist anymore, a young youth that does not exist anymore, and me that you're right now perceiving. But even as you're perceiving me at this moment, the one that you perceive does not exist anymore because it is already transformed into something else. And this process goes on. In other words, the identity transforms every level, physical, emotional, psychological, intellectual, as our understanding of the world expands. So Deepak, the baby, is dead. So is the adolescent, and so is the very youthful teenager that Deepak was, or the existence that was identified as Deepak. So there is no permanent Deepak. It's just a name given to a consciousness that is constantly evolving and transforming, hopefully in the direction of expanded consciousness. Just like there's no permanent perceiver, there's no permanent object of perception. What I'm looking out right now through my window as New York City, it did not exist as this scene in 1920 or even 10 years ago. So both the objects of perception and the subject of perception are constantly evolving, transforming, and they do so through birth and death, because the child has to die so the toddler can be born, the toddler has to die so that the adolescent can be born, etc., etc. Both the seer and the scenery are constantly transforming. In the absence of this constant flux, the universe would not be a living universe. It would be a museum, fossilized and mummified, and there would be no life. So life itself is dependent on both birth and death, and life is the continuum of birth and death. I think once you understand this, then you say, is there a permanent identity? And the answer is yes. The permanent identity is the consciousness in which these space-time events happen, which are both birth and death. And when you let go and flow, and you identify with the deeper identity that gives rise to both the observer and the objects of perception in every moment of our existence, then you realize that death makes life possible. And that is the deeper meaning of death. It makes life possible. And without that, there would be no such thing as existence. Our existence is based on consciousness. Existence is the awareness of existence, both as the observer and the objects of observation. And this is the process that we call enlightenment. To understand this through love, through self-reflection, through meditation, through service, and through a deeper understanding of ourselves beyond the mind, intellect, and ego, which are all born as a result of labels, definitions, evaluations, judgments, and attachment. I hope this makes some kind of sense, and we can continue this discussion. And we will continue this discussion as we go into the process of what ultimately is evolution of consciousness and how does it lead to the state of consciousness that we call enlightenment.